name's Stoof. Welcome to my painting channel. So this week I had a fun idea for a beginner oil paint mixing lesson. I wanted to do something fun with oil paint mixing rather than just mixing the paint and learning how to mix paint. I figured we could make a painting out of the paint that we mix. So I used one of my photos that I took in Hawaii of a sunset. This is it, and I pixelated the image online so that all of the data in the picture was correlated into larger pixels, so they become squares. We are gonna mix the colors for each of these squares to make this as a painting. So it's kind of like an abstract sunset painting, but it'll still give us a good lesson on mixing oil paint colors, and I think it'll still look pretty cool. I never made a painting like this, but we'll see how it looks. We're gonna use oil paint, so the paint's not gonna dry very quickly. So if we don't like that abrupt square line in between each pixel there, we can blend it all in because the paint will still be wet. So we got some options here. So getting started, you're going to need a ruler. I got my little Garfield ruler here, and a pencil. We are going to be marking all of these pixels. We're going to draw all the pixels on our canvas first so that we know where to put the paint. This image has 24 pixels going up and down and 30 pixels going this way. Pixels or squares, whatever you want to say it. So ideally a 24-inch by 30-inch canvas would be your best bet with this one. I didn't have any of those lying around, so I used a 16-inch by 20-inch canvas, which is basically 2/3 of the size of a 24 by 30-inch canvas. So we can still use this and keep the same dimensions, so everything's still going to be a square. We're just going to have to cut down, instead of making 1 pixel equal 1 inch, like it would on a 24-inch by 30-inch canvas, we're going to need each square to be 2/3 of an inch. So I'm going to start with my ruler here, marking all the way up on this side. So we want to get 24 pixels over here. So we're going to have to mark every 2/3 of an inch, which I did earlier. I'm going to go back over so maybe you guys can see these lines. Okay, so I went back in and did this with a Sharpie because with my lighting you can't see my pencil line. I don't recommend using Sharpie. I recommend you guys stick with the pencil, just so you guys can see. So I got all my tick lines on the borders, so I got 24 here, I got 30 up here. So the next thing we're going to do is use our ruler to drag all the way down and make a straight line that goes from the top to bottom. If you want to be really careful about it and make it super perfect, then I recommend also drawing these same tick lines on the bottom and making sure that your tick lines at the top match up right with your tick lines at the bottom. For me, I'm more of a eyeball it type of person, so that's how I'm going to do it. It'll still end up looking okay. It's just we might not have 100% perfect 90-degree angles on all of our squares. What's up, everyone? It is too nice of a day to be inside painting, so welcome to my backyard. We're going to be painting outside today. Before, we're going to be doing a color mixing lesson today. We're going to be making this abstract sunset painting, and we are going to start by painting the squares that do not need color mixing. So our 2 yellow squares in the center there look pretty close to our cadmium yellow. You know what? I'm actually going to mix a little bit of white in, but those are easy to mix, so we're going to start with those right now. We're gonna grab this cadmium yellow here and a little bit of titanium white, just a little bit like that, and we're gonna blend them just like that. You just want to push it down with the palette knife, scoop it up, push it back down until it's all blended in. And now we can see that this color is lighter than that color and darker than white, obviously. So we're going to throw that onto our canvas. And if we want to count how many squares in, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 squares in from the right-hand side. And how many down? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 from the top. So 14 in, 13 down. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Does that look about right? That looks about right. So I'm just gonna, I marked my spot there, but I'm actually gonna be using a paintbrush with a flat tip for painting this here. So we got this one, and I'm using a lot of paint because I use Sharpie marker to draw my grid. You guys should have used pencil. Sharpie's gonna see through, it's gonna bleed through paint more, so we want to use Sharpie marker. Or we want to use a thick layer of paint to cover up that Sharpie marker totally. Okay, so one to the left of this square, I'm gonna use more of my cadmium yellow. I'm not gonna blend that one, I'm just gonna use cadmium yellow because this is an abstract painting. We want things to be a little different. And I'm just gonna fill in the square, making sure I go over those Sharpie markers lines, so we don't see any of our lines. Definitely don't want to see that. Okay, so let's just start from there and move down. So next, moving down, we actually have a little bit of cadmium red in there. So I'm gonna use this color that I have right here already. I'm gonna use our yellow mixed with white, and I'm gonna add a little bit, that's too much, just a very little bit of cadmium red, and we're gonna blend that in. So cadmium red can be a very strong hue. Sometimes it's stronger than the other colors. Also, another one that does that is phthalo blue for me. So depends on the paint tube. It varies by the tube of paint that you buy. But make sure you're careful mixing your colors, not to mix too much of one color. I'm adding a little bit more cadmium red. And I'm going to add a hint of yellow ochre as well. That's this color right here. All right, that's good. Now we're going to grab our brush again. It's okay if you use the same brush. These colors aren't too different. I wouldn't recommend using the same brush if you're transitioning from like this color to yellow, but if you're just, you know, going down a level of darkness and, you know, your colors are pretty close, then that's okay to use the same brush. All right, next let's move one to the right from where we were a minute ago. That's gonna have more cadmium red, and looks like it's gonna have a little bit of black in it as well. So we got this color here. This actually looks pretty close to this color. I'm gonna add some titanium white to our color here, and I want this. More cadmium red, a little more cadmium yellow. Actually, more cadmium red. Also, we need some brown. We'll add these colors instead of adding brown. There we go. Okay, it's a little darker than I'd like, so we'll bring it up. Okay, now we're going to add more cadmium red and yellow. And also some alizarin crimson. And some black to make the next color. I made that too dark, so we want to lighten that up by adding more of our alizarin crimson, cadmium red, and yellow. Looks like it should be a little bit less yellow. So we want to add more alizarin crimson and some white to lighten that back up. Now that's pretty spot on to what I was looking for. Clean this off like this. And I'm gonna mix some alizarin crimson with some ultramarine blue, some titanium white, gonna add more ultramarine blue, I recommend having a flat surface under your palette knife if you are blending using a palette knife. I have a patio table that has little holes in it, so I'm getting some creases under my tinfoil palette. That's making it a little bit tough to mix paint. We also want to add a hint of black. One more black. And again, make sure that you're completely covering up these from corner to corner on your squares. You don't want to leave any white space because you're just going to have to go right back in there and reblend those colors. It's okay if you overlap a little bit because you can go over with the next color. now you can see I filled in all of the dark tone patches or pixels here. For these I used black, ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, sap green. Those were my darker tones that I used, and then I mixed in hints of alizarin crimson, cadmium red, cadmium yellow, and white. Those are my lighter tones, so I used mostly dark tones and added hints of little lighter tones just to give a little bit of difference between these colors, so you can tell that they're still shadows, it's something dark, but adding those little hints of light. What your eye is going to see is that this is dark and it's pretty green. It's a darker green shadow, and that from the original photo that I took, this was a palm tree and it was in the shadow, and this is our sun setting over here. So this looks pretty much how I want it to look. My squares aren't perfect, but that's okay. I might even blend them out later on. I haven't decided yet. I want to see what the whole thing looks like first. So now we are going to start working on the sky up here. So we have like light blue colors, and as you make your way down, it turns into more of a like a peachy, orange, yellow, white kind of blend until we get into our sunset where we have lots of stronger orange and pink tones. So we're going to start up here where we have our blues, a little bit of purple, and then make our way down into those pinks, oranges, and yellows. Of our phthalo blue. My phthalo blue is very strong, so I don't want to use very much of it. And some titanium white. And I'm going to hold this down with my hand. Mix it in. So as you can see, I used just a very tiny bit of phthalo blue, and it gave me that very bold blue color. I'm also going to mix some ultramarine blue, which isn't as strong as the phthalo blue, so I can use more of that. All right, now this color here is beautiful, but it is way too dark. As you can see here, we want to get a much lighter color, so we're going to add more white, blend that in, even more white, blend that in. All right, that looks better. I have a lot of the same or very similar color tones here, but I want this to look, you to be able to tell the difference between each pixel. So at least the color here between each pixel. So I'm going to use this color that I made here, which has phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, and white. And I'm going to use that as like my base color to make all my other colors with. And I'm going to add a little bit of alizarin crimson to some of these, a little bit more ultramarine blue, a little bit more white to some of these. And as I start to make my way down here, I'm actually going to use more white and some yellow and some cadmium red. So I'm just going to go back at it again and start blending some colors and throwing them in here. Okay, looks like we're running out of daylight, so I'm gonna take this party back inside. so now I got all of my pixels filled in, and it looks pretty cool actually. From this far away you can pretty much tell that it's a sunset. It's kind of neat. Up close it looks more like just a bunch of pixels, so it looks pretty cool. And now what I'm gonna do is go back and touch up a couple of those pixels to brighten some of them up, darken some of them down, and just make them the way that I'd like them to be.